Welcome to the podcast, Ronnie.
Thank you, Asher. Happy to be here, man. How you doing?
Good, yourself?
Man, I'm blessed. I ain't going. I won't complain. How they, you know how it goes, man. Yeah, little situation, but I won't complain.
That's
Happy to
good.
be here. All that good stuff, you know.
Yeah, it's been a minute. It's like almost a year since we last talked. I think it was like maybe 2020, 2019.
Yeah, I think it was over a year actually since the last time we talked.
Yeah,
Yeah, and man, it's been a while.
yeah. But you've been busy. You started your own podcast, you doing your thing, learning, growing.
hmm Yeah, man. I'm trying to like it was set in my heart to start a podcast years ago.
Hmm.
And not just that, it was a lot of creative things that like were placed in my heart just to do. But man, I spent a lot of time being those. I'll get to it tomorrow. I think sometimes you could have a level of talent that you take for granted. Like God could give you a talent, you take it for granted. You know the parable of the talents and things like that. And you have it, but don't really use it. And over time, it gets kind of watered down.
Yeah,
I can name a few things that I just said I would do, didn't really follow through with it for whatever reason. We could probably get into that maybe later. But this one, um, it just became, I don't even remember the day now. It's probably it might have been maybe around this time last year
hmm,
where I kind of started it on a sneak tip on a low because I don't know how many creators, well, you yourself being a creator, sometimes you could create something and be your worst critic. They call it imposter syndrome. You think like, oh man, this is terrible. Then other people are here and say, oh, it's not bad. You could probably work on this, maybe develop it. Or some people won't even critique it, but they'll maybe even take notice a lot later than, once the ball is rolling and everything. So it always been on my heart. And just one day I said, you know what, man, I was waiting. You know how you wait sometime for the perfect mic? You wait for all the conditions to be ideal. You wait for the perfect computer, the mixing system. Then your mind start looking for stuff that you probably don't even need. You like, oh, I need the little screen on front of the mic, or I just whatever, man. If you think about it too hard, you'll definitely come up with a reason to not do it. And man, yeah, just one day I said, I got a phone, I got everything I need, and I just hit the record button. Kind of like I said, kind of did it on a low, where I didn't want anybody to see about it till I got a little bit of traction, and that didn't last. So now it's more like a daily thing. And it's
yeah.
excited. I'm enjoying it.
What didn't last?
What didn't last?
To keep it on the low, or
Yeah, well, not to keep it on the low part. I was recording episodes probably 2 months before I would release them.
mhm,
I don't even know how I got actually I kind of do remember how I got the idea. Had this kind of like workout challenge, this mental challenge where you do the same thing every day. It was really challenging, and I just decided to stick with that. And I would record it, but I was afraid of looking silly. And I know a lot of people sometimes are afraid. That's why public speaking is like the number one thing that people are afraid of, is because you don't want to look stupid. You don't want to be, and I say that very loosely. You don't want to look stupid. I use that very, very loosely.
yeah,
So I started it. I would record the episodes months in advance and tell myself, which made sense at the time, if I ever don't really follow through with this, I could always delete all these episodes. Nobody ever knew I fell flat on my face, and it'd be like it never happened. And that didn't turn out as planned. Like I started releasing them super early, like I said, and
mhm,
over time, I can't even remember how it caught up. So now it's just like a daily thing. It's
Yeah,
still organic. I try to keep it like as organic as possible.
right.
But yeah, we're just doing it.
So was it eating away at you, like trying to hold on to it for 2 months and just be like, okay, I'll put it out eventually. And you're like, well, if I don't put it out, like I'm never gonna put
Mhm.
it out. Was that what wasn't
You,
lasting or
you know what it is? It's when you create something. Well, for me at least,
Mhm.
I have like a set it and forget it type of thing. I like to do things in advance. I'm not perfect with it by far, not perfect with it, but I like to do things in advance. And when the day that is due comes, you don't have to worry about it. It's like
right?
it reminds me of when I used to go to school. I used to, well, I hated school, but that's another story. I used to like I had this particular teacher named Mr. O'Para, and it looked like Okapara, but it's
Mhm.
O'Para, that's how you pronounce it.
Mhm.
He was strict on homework, and every day he would check our homework. It was so bad. Like if I didn't do my homework, I didn't want to go to school. But on the days that I came prepared with my homework done, I was like, "What up, Mister? Check that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me slam. I probably slam my book down with a little more aggression than I should have in the
Mhm.
seventh grade. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was something like that. Like doing it so far in advance, I would try to like release them chronologically,
Mhm.
and I would lose track of the days of what day I was up to,
Gotcha.
and so yeah, it just it I would even say it and start as intended because it's still evolving,
Yeah.
but like my intentions were. I don't think where it's at now were my actual intentions when I was starting out.
Gotcha. But I mean,
Mhm.
at this point, what are you a year in or just over a year in?
Approaching a year, approaching the act of I can't even say a consistent year because I'll be lying. I got a little too much integrity. But if you want to go by like consistently releasing episodes,
Mhm.
the end of November will be like an actual year of consistently releasing them. Now creating them,
Yeah.
that's a different story.
Mhm.
Creating the episodes, I started already
Right.
around this time last year, but actually releasing them is yeah
Gotcha.
about a year coming up in November.
Yeah. And I mean, whenever you're sharing this, I appreciate it. And I think a lot of other people appreciate that. I guess as we say, authenticity or just like just being honest with yourself when you know it's like it's not easy, but also as you're willing to meet the challenge, you understand that okay, like doing this far ahead of time, I can do it, but I feel better about it if I do this now and put it out. And that way I don't have to worry about like the anxiousness and the feelings of it. Because even for me, as we're recording this, right around this time, I started August 2019. Like I went to one of the ETA conferences, like they just had this past weekend. And I went to it back in
Mhm.
2019 when I was like kind of going through it, having to take care of some things personally and really trying to see myself as to like, okay, I what's the saying? It's like I've fallen and I can't get up, but not
Mhm.
literally like the old people thing with the commercial I'm talking about.
Right,
Where
right, with the little press the
right, maybe
button.
it's a bad analogy, but sometimes, like we were talking earlier, it's like you just kind of going through stuff and life is kind of beating you up left and right, and you're like, what's the point of even trying? But
Mhm.
something that was on my mind during that time was, hey, I like podcasts. I wonder if I could create one and just kind of put something out there to be creative in that way to figure out how people put things out there, how you hold conversations with people of interest, how you
Mhm.
like you share stories with people, and like if that's something I could do. And this weekend almost marks 2 years to the date when I put out the first episode, and I didn't put it out until 2 months after I recorded it because it's like I recorded it and then I started listening back to it and I was like, oh, that's what I sound like. And I was
You could
like,
find everything
right.
wrong with it.
I was trying to
Yeah.
like find everything wrong with it, trying to bury it. And now it's almost reminiscent 2 years later where one of the editors that I worked with suggested, hey, why don't you do like a recap of what you've learned within the 2 years? So I started recording it, and I was
Okay.
like, I recorded it on the road using one of those mobile handheld mics. And
Mhm.
it was just kind of getting my ideas down because I kept overthinking it. I was like, do I record it like this, where I'm just talking to myself, or do I just use the mic where I can speak in it and not have to think about, okay, what do I say next? Do I write this down? Do I script it? Do I try to like, the more I kept thinking about it, it was like, I'm doing too much. So then I recorded it, and it was roughly 11 minutes. After maybe editing it down, it'll be a little bit shorter. But
Mm.
listening back to it, I'm like, oh, the title that I came up with is kind of goofy. And it's like I just start going through it and systematically breaking it down, being like, I don't even know if I can pull a clip from this. But after a while, I just sent it to the editors and I was like, can you help me listen to this and see if it's something that you think would be worthwhile putting out? Because then that way it's not carrying the ownership of like self-sabotage on myself, where it's like, if I'm
Mm.
not the sole person responsible for just doing this, that way they kind of have accountability with me to say, okay,
Right.
this is still a work in progress. It's still evolving. And
Right.
even 2 years later, it's a lot of other people, they may look polished. It might be the background might be different or something like that. But it kind of serves as a reminder to me, like having this conversation with you, that like everyone has their own journey, and you have to remember where you're headed while you're doing it and not get caught up in trying to perfect your life too much to where you stop
Mm.
doing the thing and enjoying it, to where it's like, well, I thought it was supposed to be like this, but it's like, well, it's not like that yet. So are you
Right.
going to quit altogether just because it doesn't look like what somebody else has? Or are you going to do it and try to like strive to get better tomorrow and just say, hey, I put my best foot forward. When I listen back to it, I could tear it apart, just be
Mhm.
like, it sucks, it's terrible, or just do it, kind of set it and forget it. But
Yep.
what you said makes sense, where it's like if you do it daily, like you record it, you put it out, and it's like you're moving forward. But I'm sure you'll get some feedback where someone might make a suggestion. And from it, the outside looking in at what you're doing, I was like, man, you're doing good, because it reminds me of like something that you enjoy with like the 5 a.m. club that you did on Facebook, where
Oh
you're jumping on
yeah.
there, you're speaking authentically, and it's like with you doing it in the moment and putting it out, it's allowing you to just talk from within yourself without
Hmm.
being like, oh, do I sound like this or do I sound like that? Because whenever I tune in from the Hood to Good podcast, I'm like, hey, that's Ronnie. Like he's being him. And I'm like, Ronnie's he's a thinker. Like you're intellectual, even though if
Right.
somebody might be like, oh, maybe you're not from this background or you don't look in a certain way. It's like the beauty
Hood
about
intellect.
podcast, huh? Like the
Hood
view,
intellect.
right.
Nah.
But it's like the beauty about
Mhm.
podcasting, before a lot of them came out with the video thing, it's like it allows you to kind of imagine and kind of taking out the bias without seeing what the person looks like. It's like their
Mhm.
voice tells you a story while they're telling you a story. So it's like you could picture them as like this person or that. But I think just the audio version of it almost takes away a part of the judgment, where it's like, okay, I can appreciate this. And once you see what the person looks like, you can appreciate it more, or you can let your mind
Right.
kind of play tricks on you and be like, well, I thought you were supposed to be like MJ, or I thought you were like this, but
Right.
really you look like, and it's like, well,
Right.
that's one of those where it's like, what were you really looking for. But that's for that person to answer, not really for you.
Right. Yeah, but I think you were saying something that kind of made so much sense just now, as far as just pushing forward, and you kind of spoke about like that comparison piece. I did at first used to look at other people platform, other people podcasts,
Hmm.
even people like famous who were coming out with new podcasts. I'm like, oh man, they got the camera set up. They all,
Right.
they speaking to all these fancy people. And I don't remember exactly what it was that reminded me, but it's this saying that I love. I just like took it and ran with it, and I claim it as my own now. But it's kind of along the lines of keep your eyes on your own test paper. It I look at whether success, and I think success is thrown around
Hmm.
to be strictly financial. I think success is just a matter of doing what you say you would do. You could be a successful father, you
Yeah.
could be a successful family member, you could have a successful podcast with 10 listeners that
Hmm.
that and I look at it as success. So I had to clarify success before I actually broke it down. It's like a hand. If you look at anybody's hand from right here, they all look the same. They all 5 fingers. You got I can't break down every part of a hand,
Yeah.
but every hand looks the same. Then you'll look at somebody else's success, which is their version of a quote unquote hand. I'm holding up. Okay, I got
Yeah.
one. A hand, and you would think that your journey is supposed to look just like theirs. But if you really analyze any hand, each fingerprint is unique of its own. Is no two that are the same. Police can identify you from your fingerprints, so that's how you know it's unique. And I just look at my path with creating this platform, with creating each episode as okay, such and such what they're doing is dope. I like it. I listen to it. I might even take some kind, or maybe I need to add this to it, and it's still kind of growing. Uh, for those of you who ain't see, I just swiped the mosquito on camera, got it away, and I try to play it off by waving twice.
Hey
But
man,
that's
nobody
like,
would know. Nobody would know.
yeah, that's like the organic feel that I feel I can bring to the table that a lot of other people don't even address. Some people would even probably edit that out. I hope you keep that.
Yeah.
But yeah, each journey is as unique as a fingerprint. And I think when you compare what you think it should look like to what it actually looks like for you, that's when you may get discouraged. You may want to quit. Because these days, I mean, I think that's also natural for the human brain to protect its vessel. It doesn't want you to experience hardship, whether that be mentally, physically, or emotionally. It wants you to just be happy all the time. It's trying to help you survive. But when you're striving for greatness, even I'll try to make it even as simple as the success analogy, and hopefully it makes sense to someone. Um, you ever? I don't have any children, but I have nieces and nephews. And you ever promise one of them that X day you're gonna go somewhere, and then X day comes and you're like, I don't feel like it, then that's kind of a damper on your success right there as being a family member, or in my case, an uncle. So if you say that you're gonna make these episodes or drop these albums or start this business or save this money or make this investment or whatever, and you don't follow through, it I'm not saying it's a halt, but you are pushing your success in whatever particular area back just a little bit. That's just my little 2 cents. Because when you said that, keeping it on your own test paper, or well, yeah, keeping
Yeah.
comparison,
Hmm.
that's I'm like, man, yeah, that's like right up my alley. It makes so much sense. Even the From Hood to Good logo, I made that.
Yeah.
A lot of people wouldn't even know that, and I think it's cheesy, but other people would see it and be like, "Yo, it's so simple," and like,
Yeah.
it is
I,
what it
I
is.
like it because it's like the important thing is that it came from you. And like we talk about, this thing's still in progress. Like it's a process where nothing's set in stone. you could always change it if you want, but just being
Right.
able to operate from where you're at, I think it's a good thing, because even recently, I from the start of the year, I made up in my mind, it's like, okay, I wasn't all the way consistent in 2020 putting out an episode every week. So I was like, okay, just where I'm at right now in January, start this week, put out an episode, put out all the old ones, and find a way to challenge myself to record again. Like whether I feel hesitation, fear, or like punishment of like, you didn't do this. I was like, last year's gone. So
Right.
stop worrying about it. Like it's not, the time's not going to come back. I could lose another year not making the most of this year. And it was like in putting
Mhm.
out things, I was like, I'm not jumping on any calls regularly because it's just too much information for me to consume. And even on the calls that I did get, I was like, okay, if I get on one call this month, let me see what's something I can glean from it. If I'm not getting anything, I'm not going to be hanging out. And even on like Instagram recently, just jumping on there, starting to look at people's stuff, like liking it and stuff to send some support for their
Right.
viewership or whatnot. But after a while, I was like, I'm I'm getting into that consumption mode again. And like as chameleons, I think you were on the call once when we talked about having the tendency of having information constipation, where it's like you get all this stuff, you ingest it, and you don't have anything
Mhm.
to do with it. So I was like, yeah, let me cut that. And with the
Mhm.
phone I got recently, it has a it has an app on there to block your apps that distract you. So it's like you can basically put them on timeout and be like, until I need a quote
Mhm.
unquote break to use the app, these are off limits for now. That way it's like I'm not tempted to go
Okay.
there and check, or I could turn off all the notifications. And with that, as I started looking at people's stuff and I was like, oh wow, they're doing good. This person's doing that. Like you're saying, like you've got Dave Chappelle's doing the thing. You've got people like Shan's, you've got ET doing their stuff, you've got Nikki, like people that are well versed, they're studying the things. And I was just had to remind myself, it's, you can celebrate their wins, but you don't need to stay in the audience and just sit there cheering on. Like time for being a
Right.
cheerleader is kind of like past. And no disrespect to cheerleaders. That's a
Nah,
whole
not
nother
at all.
profession. That's, I don't know
You
anything
gotta throw
about
your
that back.
own party.
Right. But it's like you've got
Right,
to
right.
throw your own party. And the thing that shows that you actually learn from the people you respect is to put yourself up on your 2 feet, at least use the things that they've taught you and work out the lessons through like trying it out in real life. It's like you can go through the test, you can sit through this or that, but like once you get the information back and you try to apply it trial and error, you can't keep going back and be like, well, what about this? Well, what about, it's like, what about you just do the things we told you? And if it works out, good. If it doesn't work out, try to figure out how you can make it work out. Because otherwise, if you're constantly going back and forth to the people you admire looking for validation, it keeps you kind of in a rat race or in a loop where you're not able to be yourself effectively. You're always looking to
Yeah.
somebody else to be like,
Yeah.
well, I've got to be like that. So long as they say I'm good, then I can move on. But it's like how how often is that going to come? Like if they never give you the approval, does that make you any less of a person? Does that make you less valid? Does that make you less like, and for some reason,
Mhm.
just saying that kind of, whenever I hear your podcast, I'm like, there's somebody that I appreciate and I recognize is stepping out, even having maybe felt that before, but he's like, hey, I'm going to do this in my way because I see the value in me. Even if like a second later, I might say, I don't really know, but it's like in this moment right now when I'm recording, I know enough to just be like, hey, if I've got to fool
Right.
myself, it's like what I've got to say matters in this moment.
Right. You know, Asha, I thank you so much. That means a lot to me, man, more than you even know. And I found myself in the past getting stuck and, like we just said, waiting for that applause. You want to know what step Z is going to look like before you even finish with A. Do step A first.
Yeah.
Then it's funny how when you think like that, and trust me, it's easier said than done. It's easy to like preach it, but to actually go out and do it is a whole different story. So I don't
Yeah.
want to undermine that as well. But when you complete step A, somehow in the middle of step A, step B is going to reveal itself. Then
Mhm.
by the time you get to D or E or whatever step you want to call it, Z don't even look the same no more. Z
Mhm.
might be it like it loops, and
Yeah.
that just reminds me also that like life is a continuous learning
Mhm.
cycle. I think when you have the mindset of I need to reach this certain spot, that's when you get there
Mhm.
and it's not what you expected it to be. It's like you like you beat the game. Like you play
Yeah.
Mario Brothers, you beat the game, or maybe I shouldn't have said Mario Brothers, Zelda or whatever. You beat the
Yeah.
game, end of the game, it's over. It's like now, once you get here, you start to, as you learn and develop, you start to realize, oh, it's more to this. I thought I
Mhm.
wanted Z, but after I completed what the step that was right in front of me, I
Mhm.
realized I don't even want Z anymore. And I had a few other thoughts, but I kind of went on a tangent and kind
No,
of lost them. Then that
I like
mosquito
what you
came back.
I
That
like what you said right
mosquito
there.
did a revisit.
Well, initially I thought you were almost going to bring up a math problem and say Z starts to look like A squared. And I was like, I if you were going in the direction to say that, like,
Uh-oh.
sometimes when you're going to the end, like the end doesn't look as challenging as you thought it might look. It's almost like a repetition of the beginning, where
Right,
like
right.
when I woke up this morning, I was like feeling somewhat groggy, like maybe didn't sleep as well as I wanted to, but something
Mhm.
I I'm challenging myself to do, it's to say, okay, as it relates to working out, yes, I'd like to work out with a trainer, but right now life is happening and we're not able to connect when we want to. So it's, do I wait for him or do I force myself to do a little bit of something? If it's just going out for a walk, I went and walked for an hour yesterday and I was like, I've got to bring some energy to the podcast. I don't want to be dragging my feet. Like I've had some recordings where I was like extremely tired and it shows, it speaks through it. But I was like,
Mhm.
how can I wake myself up? And then it was, hey, just walk outside right now and walk in the backyard. It's like, I know you don't want to consume a lot of coffee and maybe you do 1 cup a week. Like, okay, make this the 1 cup for the week. Just do like a small thing of black coffee, drink it, but then go out into the sunlight and get some of that vitamin D from nature and let the body do what the body's doing. So I was
Mhm.
listening to like a MMA podcast and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go outside and walk. And I don't know exactly how my energy is gonna come up, but I think these things when I'm working on A, it's just like get up, stretch, go for a walk, drink a little bit of coffee, like do this. And maybe I'll
Mhm.
get to step B where it's like, okay, now I'm a little bit more energized. Okay, I see Ronnie, my my brain's moving a little bit more to where I can be like, okay, now we can speak on one accord. And I'm not thinking about I'm tired. I'm thinking about, hey, I'm having a conversation with Ronnie, and this is where my focus is. And then even
Right,
in the
right.
moment, it's like, hey, let's keep it short. That way it's like we do this and then we do something else and then be like, okay, let's take 5 and then come back. That way it's not like you see how quickly it went from I'm tired, gotta do a podcast. How long is it gonna be to just tired, do something about being tired, get on the podcast, worry about the
Right,
rest later. To where
right.
it's like you could quickly go down the spiral, but I'll just stop right there. But I wanted to just bring that in whenever you were talking about the doing focus on doing A, B reveals itself, and then Z might be something completely different. So I hope maybe
why
that,
do you think people do that though? Like why do people want to know what step Z looks like before they even finish with step B?
well,
Why is that?
if I had to say for me, like just thinking about it, it it's convenient to know, like you want to know where you're going. Like it's maybe part of having security, having certainty, because it's like if you know how something is going to turn out, that maybe encourages you to say, okay, this I can do. But it's
Mhm.
the things that you don't know, or a lot of times they talk about the unknown, like the dark cave, being in the belly of the beast, being like in the belly of the fish, like things that are murky, like scared of the dark. A lot of times people have those fears because you don't know what's on the other side. But usually things that you can
Mm,
see in the light, you can touch, things that you know, okay, if I do this, it gives me this, then there's there's that confidence in it, because it's
right,
like
right.
you're a little less confident about the things you don't understand, unless you just love seeking out thrills and like, hey, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just going to jump out of this plane. Maybe I'll grow some wings or my parachute would open. And it's like other
Oh
people look
Lord.
at it and they're just like, yeah, I'm not jumping out of a perfectly good plane. I'm good right here.
Mhm, mhm.
That
Yeah,
would
I
be,
like
that's my guess.
I was thinking, yeah, that security. It's funny how like this is why I love having a podcast. I had a guest up there and they really like after we just started chopping it up, which happens sometime, you know,
Mhm.
when you create these episodes. And they just revealed to me like, yo, you don't even realize some of the people you're talking to have written books. These are authors. These are people who charge like thousands of dollars for their time,
Mhm.
and you're getting a free conversation with them. So use that to grab all the information that you can. And when you just mention, and also makes you a better conversationalist.
Mhm.
And when you mention the security part, it's just like, oh, okay, that makes sense. People are afraid of, and it all kind of ties into each other. It's like you want to look perfect, you want to have all the answers. If somebody comes up to you and say, hey, how do you do this? You want to be able to say, this is how you do it. A lot of people just don't want to say, I don't know. And I think when you just follow step A, step B, not knowing what Z looks like, if somebody comes to you and say, hey, what does step W look like? You won't be afraid to say, I don't know. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Yeah. So that security and just like knowing where you're going. Um, yeah, man. Yeah,
Yeah, that
man.
makes sense.
Yeah, man.
Man. So I mean, for I know we talked a bit about the podcast. As you're winding down the year, what would you say are some things that stood out in 2021 for you?
2021, I would say definitely just consistency. I people have called me consistent before, like when it came to like 5 a.m. club
Mhm.
and stuff like that. But I I don't. First of all, I didn't like being on camera, and I don't like. I would say 2021, man. Like I'm kind of drawing a blank, but that just stands out. Consistency. I thought when I started this, I thought I would have been quit. Like I've done a lot of things. How you handle one thing is how you handle a lot of things. I thought I would have been giving up. Is days I don't feel like doing it, and I'm okay with. I've grown to the point. I'm okay with, like I said, not looking perfect. I'm okay with waking up. Listen, this is how I feel right now. This is a part of the journey. The book is not the book. I don't want to get too hype, people too hype with that, but the story is actually being written real time. So I'm okay with like waking up and having that level of transparency where it's like I feel like crap today. I feel like, you know, today is not one of the good days. And just coming from the heart I always been like that sincere dude. At least I would like to think I believe I am. You know, I'm not one to toot my horn. I'm heavy on the humble juice. But just being consistent, being sincere, um, living life is still a lot to unfold. It's a lot to unravel. It's still a lot of growth to be had. And I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm okay with that. If I'd have studied for the test, I'd have probably had a better answer. But you know what I mean? I didn't get to study for that one.
Well, I mean, it sounds like with 2021, you're good with who you are. Like you're doing better at accepting yourself.
Right, right. It I would definitely say it's taught me about that prison of perfection. Um, just always trying to be seen in a certain light
Mhm.
that when in reality actually disconnects you from people more, in my opinion. Like if somebody sees you and all you are is perfect, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying you gotta reveal every detail to them. I don't think that would be smart. Some details I think should be left for professionals.
Mhm.
Mental health is getting a lot of light that I think it deserves. That I think is long overdue.
Yeah.
And but being sincere on a like, for example, I look on social media and I have nothing wrong with it. I have no nothing against it at all. But all you see on social media is the highlights. I don't see anybody low lights. I don't see anybody, like posting they got $2 in the bank account or nothing like that. Like I don't see any of that. But that same person with $2 in the bank account or post, like they living their best life or something like that. Like they on vacation or they in Atlantic City, Miami, Europe, wherever, but have $2 in the bank account. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I just think that level of transparency and sincerity, something you can't fake, people could tell when it's real or when it's not. And um yeah, we in a new decade, 2020. I kind of made some mental changes, quarantine. I felt like I abused quarantine. I'm not afraid to say that. Um, didn't fully take advantage of quarantine. I think a lot of people say that, but some people will, like I said, front and say that they did everything they could during quarantine. And now that I have this, at the time of this recording, this broken leg, it's kind of like quarantine all over again. So we'll see what comes out of this,
Yeah.
you know?
But I mean, to your point, I think one of the adjustments you made going from like the 5 a.m. to the podcast where you didn't like being on camera. So then you just made it, you focused on strictly the audio, which still allows you to create, right?
Right, right. And not to say that it won't develop
Right.
into camera later, but yeah, like and plus, um, here's a it's my time podcast exclusive. I stole that name, 5 a.m. Club.
Hey man, there's nothing new
That
under the
wasn't my
sun.
name. I
There's
took
nothing
it.
new
I
under the
said,
sun.
right, right. I said, what, man? I'm jacking this. I just took it and ran with it, and I didn't even expect it. Nobody. Actually, the reason behind that was because I knew a lot of people not up at 5 a.m. Um, but prior to that, I was doing something called the Daily Live Vibe, and people would tune in that I knew,
Mhm.
and I'm like, I don't want to be seen. I want to stay hidden. I want to, it was extremely out of the comfort zone to the point where it became like draining to do it. And I didn't think that was healthy. If you're like being drained to to just do whatever, I think you should maybe like reanalyze or just approach it from a different angle or just put your own spin on it. I'm not saying give up. I'm not saying quit. Perhaps I should have kept going. Perhaps, who knows? But it's in the past, and who's to say that it won't come full circle this time with more experience, this time with speaking better, being like speaking off camera, I think it's gotten better. I'm not saying it's perfect. I don't expect it to be perfect overnight, but you got to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G
Yeah.
till you get to Z. And man, I'm excited about the future. Uh, Still probably going on a tangent. I still use as a crutch. Somebody told me, yo, you say a lot. I don't like that. Turn them off. And I ain't gonna front. That kind of hurt when they said it,
Mhm.
but I'm just like, hey, I'm not perfect. There's still some development here.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we like you quit. I mean, you lose when you quit. That's so
Mhm.
yeah, just keep going, man.
And I
And
think
I'm excited about your platform too, man. You doing your thing. I am extremely proud of you, happy for you, man. I'm loving this.
thank you. And to your
Mhm.
point, I think almost like a misnomer with quitting, it's like just because you stop something doesn't mean you can't pick it back up. Like you can do your best as well as you could. That doesn't really make sense. But you can always
No. Yeah,
go ahead.
that makes perfect sense. Yeah, yeah. Hey, just because you stopped it doesn't. I mean, it's hard to phrase it and sound like it was written in the movie, but I get what you're saying. You can pick it back up. It's like relationships. The people that's really gonna rock with you. I think also people get so stuck in numbers. They like I need, like I said earlier, you can have 10 solid people that rock with you and just support you all the time and actually be successful. If it trust me, if it's a strong 10 and you're committed to what you want to do, you can have a successful life in that area. I'm not saying you'll be on private jets, G5s, and stuff like that flying across the globe, but you'll be able to live, you'll be able to take care of yourself, your family. If you had a solid 10 people, as opposed to you got a million people that you bought probably, million followers. They don't even look at you, no engagement, nothing like that. So just that sincere connection that I think is really missing in the world is what I crave. Somebody even made me aware of, because I was struggling at one point with even connecting with people, even like having a conversation. Look, oh, how you been? And they made me aware of, oh, you're not really one for small talk. Like I made small talk for me is, oh, hey, how you doing? I just had you on my mind. You know what I mean? How the family, da 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 da. Like I won't get into how's the weather and things of that nature, but that sincere connection, I think that it comes with time. It doesn't happen overnight, and when it does happen, you have people that's backing you, that's going to really ride with you, and that's the kind of people I want to rock with.
That's awesome. And I guess to your point, you might just say, hey, we start business first. And then after business, maybe we can be friends, but let's keep it professional to start.
Yeah, I mean, it's not written in stone. It's
Right.
flexible. I can be extremely loose with like the words I use and the terminology or whatever. But I hope you got
Yeah,
where I'm coming
I
from
get
the
what
heart.
you're
You know
saying
what I mean?
because no, I mean it's like how would you say small talk sometimes it feels like it's not hard to have small talk with someone that you know or like you genuinely care about, but sometimes it might feel like to me it may feel that it almost becomes like a formality, something that people do to be like, okay, I can trust you because we can talk in this way. But a lot of times, if it's like you have to do it every single time, it almost loses like a bit of integrity where it's like, okay, we're all faking it just to be nice. You're nice to my face. And then as soon as we turn around, you're like, oh, geez, I can't stand that person. It's like, why don't you just say that? Or why don't you not waste the time with the small talk and just get to the point of what you're trying to say? But it,
Hmm.
it may be a generational thing, it might be a cultural thing, but I get what you're saying
Right.
because with some people, it's like they may have an easier time doing small talk if they're like charming, if they're charismatic, they know exactly what to say and when to say it. But it's like
Hmm.
if it's not genuine, you kind of feel the fakeness of it, even if it's someone that's like very, very skilled. Like after a while, they keep repeating the same actions and you start to like sit down and pay attention to what they're doing, and you're like,
Yeah,
something's not right about my man, or it's like something's not right about so
yeah.
and so, because it's like you always come around this time, you always kind of present something, but like
Hmm.
we're not where we thought we were.
The patterns start to reveal themselves.
Yeah,
You're like, that's fishy. And I'm one to be like, if your gut is telling you that, maybe you should look into it a little more instead of just, oh, nah, I'm tripping. You
yeah,
know.
it's
Hmm.
awesome. So what's on the horizon for you looking at 2022?
Well, well,
Or let's
honestly,
focus
I haven't.
on this year, maybe.
Honestly, right now, yeah, I am focused on just healing.
Hmm.
I'm having a really challenging time looking beyond healing. So day to day, I mean, I got my little routine. I try.
Hmm.
I'm trying. I haven't exactly locked it in the way I'm telling myself I should, but that can be also be the prison of perfection, you
Hmm.
know. Um, when you make just making that constant effort. But right now, all I'm worried about is just healing up, man. I feel like a loser. I know I'm not a loser. I
Hmm.
know I'm not, worthless or helpless, but just having to rely a lot on others is something that I'm not used to.
Hmm.
It's challenging. I'm working with it, but all I want to do is heal right now, man. That's all I got on my mind.
Hey, man.
If a book comes out of this,
Yeah.
whatever, if something creative comes out of it, that's a plus. And it may take a couple more weeks, maybe 3, 4, 5 weeks. Who knows the time frame? But daily, I just try to even say this mantra. I'm like learning a lot. YouTube University, how powerful the mind is, and I just try to just say heal. Chant to
Yeah.
myself heal. And yeah, the sooner that happens, the better. But
Yeah.
I'm probably on D right now, or C, or E, or whatever, and Z is when the healing comes. And once that comes, we'll probably be able to answer that a lot better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, something, I'll say this to you, something that may help you as you're going through the healing process is maybe don't focus so much on getting to the end, like we were talking about the Z, but like as you're healing,
Mm,
focus on the healing. And even in the times that it sucks, like be appreciative of the hurt, the pain, because as I'm saying, it's one of those where it's like, how the hell are you going to tell me like I broke my foot? Like I want the bones to come back together, but it's like in this time that you have the broken foot, be appreciative of the people that are in your life that you can rely on. It doesn't make you weak for having people you can count on, because it's almost like people talk about having, they always make like the lion analogy, or people maybe talk about hyenas or like a pack of wolves. It's like the reason those groups are strong is because they're in groups. So it's like if you just
mm,
have the alpha male, it's like even a dictator, somebody can be like big and bad puffing their chest out, but once, if you burn so many bridges, like after a while, people might gang up on you and be like, let's get him. Like that person's making all of us suffer. They're making all of us miserable. So it's like, we're going to get together and take that person out. But even if, especially at the times when you're working hard, you're doing this, like you're taking the real estate exam, you're studying for that, you're doing the podcast, like things are lining up in your life. And then all of a sudden it feels like, oh, there's this setback. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it. It's not something you'd be like, oh, thank God I broke my foot. But it's almost like whenever E talks about his wife getting MS and seeing like the blessings that might come out of it, it's
mm.
it's hard to, even as I'm trying to say it, I'm not trying to just put a
Or
bow
you
on a
prepare, yeah.
situation that's not, it
Hmm.
doesn't feel good. And it's like, but we know through other people that have broken things that usually through the healing process, your bones are going to become stronger. But it's like in them becoming stronger, it may be better that you embrace a part of the hurt, because it's like, even myself, as I was talking about doing the walk earlier, and I took measurements, going through like the 4 hour body, where it's like, okay, in order for you to have this proper transformation, you need to take measurements in inches and track your inches instead of your weight. So it might be in my mind, oh, I want to have like the 6 pack or whatnot, but it's like, sometimes I look at it like, I really like the chocolate and I really like the ice cream. So maybe having a bit of a gut is not so bad, but it's like, it's gonna suck doing this and like going through the pain and sitting there like, okay, I can't eat right now, or I can't do this right now. And although I could argue for not having the discipline, or maybe I'll get to it when I get to it, it's like, if I start today and, hey, I just learned to, as an adult, this is when I eat, this is when I do this. Okay, I'm in pain. This is who I can count on. This is who I can call. And even in the times where you have to be alone with your thoughts, you have to start answering certain questions you don't want to deal with, you don't want to face. It's like, do it anyways. Like, you back to what you said, focus on the A. It's like, acknowledge what you're feeling. Like, I feel bad, but in spite of what I feel, I'm still going to do the actions that get me to the end point. And I didn't, I'm saying that to encourage you and not just to like sugarcoat it, but it's like, you mentioned something and I feel you need the encouragement on it, but I'm also saying it to where when I listen back to it, it will remind me, hey, despite what you're going through now, do like appreciate that you're
Right.
hurting right now, appreciate that you're broken, and find the small thing to do the next thing. It's like, right now, it's have the conversation, enjoy a bit of levity. If it's going to be harder later, it's going to be, hey, I need help getting in the shower.
It's like your walk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
like your
going through
walk.
the walk. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I got to do this for 15 minutes, or I've got to do this for an hour. It's like, hey, my feet are getting heavy. It's like, okay, like my brother would tell me, move your arms like they're hammers, like shoulder to hip. Like, that's all you need to focus on. Move your arms and they'll move your legs. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I thought this was supposed, like, he didn't tell me it was supposed to hurt like this. They didn't tell me, oh, like, if you go walk out in the middle of the day, it's hot. Yeah, it is hot, but you have to hydrate, do what you can. If it's 5 minutes, like, do the 5 minutes, but at least start and finish things small enough to where you can tell yourself like, hey, I can do this, to where it's like, let's not set up a whole thing of like, I've got to do this whole week, I've got to do this for 3 hours of today. It's like, okay, maybe I start this thing, I wanted to do it for 15 minutes, I'll just do it until I can't anymore, and I'll try again, and I'll try again. And it's like, if it's not right for me to be doing all this stuff, maybe I just put it on pause. And it's not,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm quitting. It's, no, you're doing what you can in this moment, and then from there you do something else. Like,
Yeah. Solid reminder right there, brother. Thank you for that.
you're welcome. Because
Mm-hmm.
in encouraging you, it's like, I feel like it's almost necessary as a way to encourage myself, because that's like the transparency behind the highlights, where it's, yeah, I I can't feel what you're feeling right now, but I can understand in the way that, yeah, earlier in the week, I was thinking like, okay, this person made me mad. Do I just want to quit, walk away, and go do something else? It's like, but how is that going to help you if you just quit because somebody made you mad? It's like, if you quit here because of humans, you're going to go somewhere else where there are humans. They might be good to start off with, but then
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have the same problem again, especially if it's you in this situation every time. And it's like, you got to fix your ego, and you can't just be,
Yeah.
oh, this person didn't look at me right, this person didn't treat me how I wanted to be treated. It's like, it's okay. Maybe they're not bad people. It's just bad actions. And you don't have to like and love everybody, but just find a way to get through it. But more importantly, find a way to get along with yourself.
No doubt. Absolutely.
I know I went on a tangent.
Nah, you good. You good.
It's probably the last time that I'll say that, but it's like, hey, sometimes when you just got to say what's on your mind and let some things out, because if you keep bottling so much stuff in and you're always thinking, always processing, it's like maybe it's a bunch of nothing, maybe there's something in there, but like allow yourself to try a little bit to where you're not always trying to be like, is this the right thing? Is it, do I pass the ball? Do I just keep dribbling? Like,
stay what's on right in front of you. Yeah.
yeah. You want to transition over or
What you mean? Like,
switch to the switch it to your end, or
I thought you had like an outro or something like that. That's what I was waiting for. I'm like, okay, is he going to
oh
wrap it
yeah,
up or something like
I
that?
should do that, but we'll keep this in. But maybe I messed up
See,
myself there. It's
that's
like,
a part of that growth too.
right,
I
because
mean,
it's
you could chop it out, but
right,
yeah.
but I mean it's like, even so with my outro, I'd ask you this: in with what you're doing now, how can people find you, and where can they connect with you?
Oh, all platforms from Hood to Good podcast, Apple, Spotify, everything, Google's, all of them. And on IG at From Hood to Good. Come grow with us. I want people to feel included, feel a part of this. And yeah, man, we're excited about what's to come, continuing to grow. And yeah, man, hit us up. From Hood to
Awesome.
Good.
Appreciate you, Ronnie.
Thank you, Asher. Thank you for having me, man.
Yes, sir.